In 2008, the Chicago Bulls selected Memphis point guard Derrick Rose. He was just one and done and averaged 14 points, 4 rebounds, and 4-point assists per game. He had insane and unmatched athleticism that wasn't common among 6'3" guards, but he was special. He was compared to NBA legend Dwayne Wade due to his craftiness and ability to make athletic plays with regularity. His biggest flaw was definitely his shooting. His shooting form and motion wasn't fluid, nor was it consistent, but nonetheless, he was a great prospect with superstar potential. In his rookie season, the Bulls failed to make the playoffs, but they didn't have a horrific record or anything like that. They finished 41-41, and rookie Rose averaged 16.8 points, 4 rebounds, and 6 assists, while shooting 47% from the field, 78% from the line, and 22% from 3. And those numbers were good enough to win him Rookie of the Year, making him, Michael Jordan, and Elton Brand the only Bulls to ever win it. But in his second season, things would get a lot better. He averaged 20.8 points per game, 3.8 rebounds, and 6 assists. And yeah, he was still shooting poorly from 3, but he only attempted under 1 3 per game, so it really wasn't that bad. But nevertheless, he led the team to the playoffs where he played at a near superstar level, averaging 26 points in round 1 versus the Boston Celtics. And even though they were beaten in 7 games, the Bulls knew they had a superstar on their hands. And plus, he was named an All-Star this season as well. In D. Rose's third season, he averaged a career-high 25 points along with 4 rebounds and 7.7 assists, and he led his team to an incredible 62-20 record while on his way to his first MVP, all the while becoming the youngest MVP in NBA history. Now they were facing the Indiana Pacers in the first round. Rose wasted no time getting into his bag, scoring 39 points in just 39 minutes in Game 1 and 36 points in Game 2. And although he still wasn't shooting well from 3, the Bulls beat the Pacers in 5 games and were now facing the Atlanta Hawks. In the second round, Rose scored 24 points and had 10 assists in Game 1, and followed that up with 25 points and another 10 assists in Game 2. By the time he got to Game 4, he went absolutely insane on the court, and scored 44 points in just 38 minutes. Rose would go on to score over 30 points in his next 2 games, continuing his reign of terror. And while he did only score 19 points in the closing Game 6, he added 12 assists. Combine that with a great performance from Carlos Boozer, who had 23 points and 10 rebounds, and that would be enough to get them to the Eastern Conference Finals. Now they were going up against none other than the Miami Heat, who at the time had the holy trinity of LeBron, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh. In Game 1, Rose went off for 28 points and 6 assists. He was on fire that night, and he did just about anything he wanted. He got to the rim, got to the mid-range, he shot 43% from 3 this game even. The Bulls would lose Game 2 with Rose scoring 21, 6, and 8, and unfortunately, through the rest of the series, he didn't have any more monster games. The Heat, led by LeBron James, beat the Bulls in just 5 games. In Derrick Rose's 4th season, things would take a turn for the worst. The Bulls made the playoffs again, finishing with an impressive 50-16 record. Rose and the Bulls were facing the Philadelphia 76ers, and in Game 1, with about a minute and 20 seconds left in the 4th, Derrick Rose drove into the lane and tried to perform a hop step. Unfortunately, he would land awkward on his left knee, and of course, as we all know by now, he tore his ACL. This was one of the most heartbreaking moments in NBA history. Not only because he was great, but because he was one of the most likable stars in the NBA. Just like Giannis or Steph Curry, it's impossible to dislike them. And when we went back and watched this play over again, it just feels surreal. It's one of those freak injuries that should have never happened, but it did. And the thing is, the Bulls were up 12 points with a little over a minute left in the 4th. So honestly, he shouldn't have even really been in the game still. But we do see that all the time, even today. Some fans call it stat padding, but we think sometimes a player is just so into a game or in a groove that they feel like they could play for the entire length of the game. However, here, that choice cost him everything. Derrick Rose would miss the entire next season, but in 2013 he was ready to return and the world was ready for him. He returned in an exhibition game between the Bulls and the Pacers, and he played well. He attacked the rim early and he flew around on defense. He played 20 minutes and had 13 points, 2 assists, and 3 steals, so things were looking bright again. In Rose's first regular season game, they went against the Miami Heat, and while Carlos Boozer had 31 points and a young Jimmy Butler had 20, Rose only scored 12 and had 5 turnovers and shot 4 for 15 from the field. In the Bulls' second game versus the Knicks, he would have a slightly better game, but it was still far from his best. He would score 18 points while shooting 7 for 23 from the field. His third game, he scored 13. In his fourth game, 17. Fifth, 12, and in his sixth, just 16 points, but he did shoot 8 for 21 from the field. Overall, it was one of his better games. But on November 22, 2013, tragedy would strike yet again. In a game versus the Portland Trail Blazers, his right knee would buckle after planting his foot into the ground. This injury was so bad that he had to get knee surgery that put him out for the remainder of the year. So it was now twice that Rose suffered a major knee injury in a 19-month span. In 2015, he would return, and he actually ended up playing 51 games that season. But he was no longer putting up MVP numbers, nowhere near it. He averaged 17 points, 3 rebounds, and 5 assists while shooting a poor 40% from the field and 28% from 3. But with the emergence of Jimmy Butler, who averaged 20 points per game, they were now in the playoffs as a 3rd seed. In round 1, they faced off against the Milwaukee Bucks, and in game 1, they came away with the victory after Rose dropped 23 points, along with Butler's 25. And while he didn't play well in the game, he would score 34 points in game 3. But after the Bulls lost the next 2 games, they would finish off the Bucks in 6 with a great all-around team effort. In round 2, they took on the Cleveland Cavaliers, and Rose actually had a few big performances, including his game winner in game 3, and then followed that game up with another 30-point game. Unfortunately, the duo of LeBron and Kyrie proved to be too much, and the Bulls lost in 6. That next season, the Bulls would miss the playoffs entirely, with Derrick Rose averaging less points than the previous year. And this is where his time in Chicago would come to an end. He clearly was a shell of his former self, and he couldn't deliver like he once could. So they traded him, along with Justin Holiday, to the New York Knicks for 2 apples and a Walmart gift card. Obviously, I'm joking, but they traded him for Robin Lopez, Jose Calderon, and Jerian Grant. Definitely not the players you would expect to be in a trade with a former MVP. In Rose's first year with the Knicks, he would have a solid year, averaging 18 points, 3 rebounds, and 4 assists per game. He also shot 47% from the field, which was his highest field goal percentage since his 2nd season in the NBA. But the Knicks would finish 31 and 51 and miss the playoffs. And in the offseason, Rose was on the move again, signing a 1-year, $2 million contract with the Cleveland Cavaliers, where he averaged just 8 points per game in 25 games before sitting out to reevaluate his future. And plus, he was dealing with an ankle injury. But the Cavaliers didn't want to hold on to the former MVP. They traded him along with Jay Crowder to the Utah Jazz. However, shortly after the deal was done, the Jazz released him. He then signed with the Minnesota Timberwolves in 2019, and things were looking promising once again. He averaged 18 points per game in 27 minutes of action. And not only that, but he shot 37% from 3 on 3 attempts per game, which was by far his career best from 3. So while he wasn't all-star caliber anymore, he was pretty close. He even had a 50-point game that sent chills down the basketball world's spine. It was simultaneously one of the saddest and greatest moments that season, a reminder of what once was. And with him chipping in, the Timberwolves were able to get into the playoffs, and he kept up his solid play, averaging 14 points and 2.6 rebounds for the entire series. Not to mention, he shot 70% from 3 and 51% from the field. Although he exceeded expectations and had a really good year, he would still end up signing with the Detroit Pistons on a 2-year, $15 million deal the next season. Once again, he had another pretty good season, averaging 18 points and 5.6 assists per game, showing he could still score at an alright level. But the Pistons were still garbage and finished with a 20-46 record, missing the playoffs. And the next season, his production would drop off significantly. In 2021, he found himself back with the New York Knicks. And while he was shooting a career-high 40% that season, his points and assists dropped off dramatically from his previous 2 seasons. His field goal percentage was the worst it had been in his last 4 or 5 seasons. It became obvious he was starting to decline even further. Now, let's fast forward to the present day, where he's still on the Knicks, but he really doesn't get any playing time. And the only way he's going to get on the floor is if the Knicks' current point guards suffer an injury. And with the Knicks being one of the better teams in the Eastern Conference, led by All-Star Jalen Brunson, they clearly aren't too focused on getting Rose on the floor. It sucks to say, but they're succeeding without him. And as much as we all love him, he just isn't the same player he once was. And while we're not throwing in the towel on his career just yet, we're still pretty curious about what will be next for his career. According to reports, the Milwaukee Bucks and Golden State Warriors were showing interest at the trade deadline. But even if he went to a team like the Warriors or Bucks, we still highly doubt he would be getting any quality minutes. But what do you think? What's next for Derrick Rose's career? Let us know down in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.